Hello and welcome to Athletic Therapy Now, a podcast for athletic therapists by an athletic therapist. My name is Ashley Burr and I will be your host. Thank you for joining us today. Hello and welcome to Athletic Therapy Now, episode 17, Accounting Complaints, Common Struggles for Athletic Therapists. Today we have Paz Mukikala. Paz has been a certified athletic therapist since 2019 with a Bachelor of Kinesiology from the University of Toronto and a Bachelor of Science in Athletic Therapy from the University of Winnipeg. She is a self-proclaimed unserious adult who resides in Toronto. She has experience on the sidelines with various sports teams, including rugby, tackle and flag football, volleyball, and soccer. If she isn't working, she is kept busy or she is traveling. So there was episode 14, I believe, we had Paj on and we talked about on-field therapy and the program behind that. So if you're interested in hearing more from Paj, you can always go and look at episode 14. Today we kind of prompted, or this was prompted in the last, after the last episode where we were chatting, we started to really get into some of our personal experiences and complaints about accounting. So I wanted to have Paj back to chat about that.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, happy to have you. Let's get this started off with just let's talk about some of your prior struggles with getting an accountant and finding an accountant that worked for you.
Okay, let's start with probably like fresh out of school. My friends, my fellow ATs were like, "Yeah, get an accountant, get an accountant." I was like, I don't need one. I wasn't doing much field work. I was working as an employee. My field work was like my self-employed stuff. I'm like, it can't be that hard. Okay, I have QuickBooks. I had H&R Block app, and I'm like, we're gonna figure it out. Should be fine. The one thing I did listen to, they're like, keep all your receipts, which I did, which is great. Um, did my taxes myself for 2 years. I owed money. I do not make enough money for me to give the government more money. So I was like, you know what? Let me actually get an accountant because clearly I'm messing something up somewhere for me to owe money. So I got who I thought was an accountant, I think turned out to be sort of like a bookkeeper to do my taxes 1 year. They set everything up nicely and it was good. It was just the process of it was long and tedious, and I was like, okay, let me actually get an actual accountant because by the end of the whole process, I was like, wait, I'm not actually dealing with an accountant. So um, I asked around, and somebody referred me to an accountant who is great. Have done my taxes for 2 years. Filing was great. Got good returns. Cool beans. And then I got audited, which is a lovely, lovely process that I just completed on last Sunday. Submitted everything. Um, but yeah, I think the woes of ups and downs of getting an accountant is for me personally has been a little different because I'm not fully self-employed. So I'm an employee and I'm subcontracted. So I guess for accountants, it's just like they classify me as like regular tax filing, just a little bit of self-employment. So I just think either the time is not put there because you've probably figured out yourself too. If you don't catch an accountant before they start business taxes, like big, big business taxes, um, they're impossible to find. Once they start those big business taxes, they disappear. Um, but yeah, I've had my woes and I'm getting audited. So don't know how, don't know why. Um, but the 2 years that are getting audited are the 2 years that the accountant filed. So I don't know what happened. Very
Well,
confused.
I have heard that when you're self-employed, that is when you are like you're at a higher risk of being audited, which is the
Yeah,
biggest reason why I want an accountant is because I want to do everything properly because I'm self-employed, which means
yeah,
I'm at a super high risk for becoming audited. And then I believe the other one is if there's a big fluctuation in your income, right? So
yeah,
if you go from whatever amount and it jumps up, then again, that's what puts you at risk for becoming audited.
yeah,
Um, I mean, they say that it's like
random.
random, but I
Yeah.
don't think it is, right? They're
Mm,
flagging things that don't look right.
yeah.
Yeah, I had found an accountant when I first started out, and again, I was like, well, I'm not really making enough money to actually hire an accountant, but my taxes are more complicated than being able to do them myself because I
Mm,
am fully self-employed. And so I had started off with a friend of mine. She was great, a friend's mom, and the process went really well. It was really easy. She would go over them with me. We would sit down. We would do it
mm.
together, and then she retired, and she was
Oh,
no longer doing taxes. And I was
no.
like, okay, okay. So then my husband kind of said, like, well, like she's gone through it with me. Like, I think we can do it. We can figure this out. So then the next year we did them, and Kevin after that was like, you know what, maybe we should go back to hiring an accountant because some of these numbers are really like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't quite go there. So I think we did like 2 years without an accountant. And I had started making more money. Um, and then I had a little bit of a goof in there where I didn't realize that I needed to submit GST.
Oh, oh, they came for
Um,
you for the taxes.
no,
Okay.
they didn't come for me. It was
Oh,
just I was working in one single clinic. The clinic
yeah.
was taking GST from clients, and I thought that it would be okay if the clinic was submitting them for me, right?
Oh,
Because regardless, the government was getting their GST.
yeah. Taxes are collected.
Yeah, but no, that's not right. They don't
Oh,
care. They want me to submit my own GST and the clinic to submit their own GST. We can't have it submitted under the same thing. And the only reason I found this out was
mm,
because I lived in a condo, and it was this like
yeah,
little tiny condo in a small town. And I was like, I had people asking if that I could just see them in their homes at the condo
yeah.
complex. So I decided I was going to get a GST number so that I could
Mm,
see these clients, collect GST, submit GST. And this is when I found out that I should have been paying GST all along, not the clinic. I lucked
oh,
out because there was only like the way it works with GST is that once you start going over that $30,000 amount,
mm.
it's everything past that that you need to submit. And so
Oh,
um, I had, I think, come off of, I spent part of 2016 and part of 2017 on mat leave, came back part time. So I didn't make it through those times. And then at some point I hit that 30,000. This must have been somewhere in, I'm going to say 2018,
mhm.
because 2019, they delayed payments for taxes, right?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Because of the COVID. So I only had a few months from 2018, and then I had all of 2019 that I had to pay or something like that. However it
Yeah.
worked out, I did not get dinged a ton. But I was
Uh-huh.
so scared, I was so nervous, I was like, "Oh my gosh, the government's coming for me. I'm gonna have to owe them way more than I can because I goofed on this GST thing." In the end, it all worked out. I think I owed them, like, a couple $100
Oh,
in,
that's not bad.
like, interest. Yeah. But I decided that, I didn't want to, um, have any more oopses. I think there was also a year where I owed a lot of taxes, and I didn't anticipate that, because I
Mm,
didn't put enough away. And for those of you who are new to athletic therapy or being self employed, or those of you who are just getting um, into that uh, tax side of it, where you're starting to understand it or you don't understand it yet, when you're employed, um, your your employer pays part of your CPP, and then you pay part of your CPP. When
yeah.
you're self employed, you pay both parts.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Mhm.
And so, because I didn't quite understand that, I had only put enough. away enough money for like what I owed, but not for my CPP,
Mm,
if that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Those
Anyways,
deductions.
it was a mess. So there was a couple years in a row where I had some big screw ups on my part because I just didn't understand enough about it.
Mm,
And so then I decided I was getting an accountant, and a friend referred me to an accountant, and it was in like a big accounting firm that was really well known. And the recommendation was, get an accountant that's well known because you're less likely to get audited if you have a good name behind you.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's do this. Met with the accountant. It sounded great. We had like a half-hour talk about my taxes, my husband's taxes, like what I can and cannot write off. Sent him
Mhm.
all the information. And then he had his little minion do my taxes. And his minion and him did not talk about our meeting. So anything that we talked about that he said I didn't have to write down because he would just add that into his notes didn't get passed off. So then I had to
Uh,
have a whole other conversation with his new accountant minion person, and he screwed up some little things in our taxes that we had to go back and redo, and it was nothing major.
yeah.
It was like whatever, like we'll give it a year. We'll next year we'll do another go. And still, like there were some things that they screwed up. Um, so then I decided, like, okay, obviously I'm too small
Yeah.
for them to care, but I'm too big to not have an accountant, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know enough about accounting. And then I went off to another person. I found another accountant. Now I'm just accountant hopping, right? And there's this referred from a friend. We um same thing, had a phone conversation, sent them off my stuff. Like, is this how you like having, like, I have everything on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
He said it was fine, it's good, like, let's go with this. And and again, there was a few little mistakes. Nothing big, nothing major. I was like, okay, like this is okay. Like I'm still having to go through my accounting stuff to make sure that they did it right, which I
Yeah.
feel like I shouldn't have to. Like if I'm passing my stuff off to an accountant, that's their job.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to check, but I do anyways because I want to understand things. And then the next year I get a notification. So this is my second year with this now third accountant.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay, like in the mail, we're going to be increasing fees by $300
Oh,
per person." It was something like that.
what?
And this is like a month before I have to submit my taxes. And
Oh,
so
God.
I mean, he's doing my taxes and my husband's taxes, and I think it was like for 750. So not a lot of money for the two of us.
Yeah.
But now he's going to charge $300 addition to that each
That's
for my
absurd.
taxes and my husband's taxes, which is,
Yeah.
what, I can respect that. It's a method that is used across a lot of businesses. If you get too busy, you increase your fees, you lose clients, but you still get paid the same, right?
Oh, I didn't know people do that. That is smart.
Yes, it's a really great method, right? So, like, as an athletic therapist, if I was too booked, I could increase my fees, lose clients, so that I'm still having the schedule I want,
Yeah.
but I'm still going to make the same amount of money with a little bit less clients, right? I get it. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Because the increase balances out. Hmm.
Yeah, the timing was poor. They were trying to move over to a different style of accounting. So, like, whatever. I get it. I understand. My husband decided not to go with them. I was still going to do my taxes with them. I was just going to pay that extra $300. Um, Fast forward to after they did my taxes, I had submitted them. And like when I have my Excel sheet, it is super clear. I have every
Mhm.
single receipt written out, like the
Yeah.
amount, the GST for all my expenses. I have it added up. I have my income written out and added up, and it's
Mhm.
highlighted. Okay. Everything that needs, and then I go through it with a fine tooth comb. I'm like, okay, this I'm only, my cell phone. I don't necessarily deduct 100% of it. So I go through and I'll percent like I'll do the math figured out
Yeah.
what amount needs to be deducted. Um, Submit it, get my stuff back. I'm looking at it. Um, they forgot to add a whole bunch of my lines to the deduction sheet. They didn't give me the benefit, what is it called? Like, so I get a tax deduction for putting my son into sports, right? Up to
Oh
a
yeah.
certain amount. He didn't click on those. So overall, it would have been, had I not gone through it, a loss on my end of about $2,000.
In this economy,
And I mean, the letter they sent was like, we are increasing our fees so that we can hire more staff and continue to give great service. So I responded back after this, and we had gone back like 4 or 5 times with this
oh
email,
god.
and he's like, "Well, you can't deduct that, you can't deduct that." And I was like, "But CRA told me, like, you can have, as a self-employed person in a
Yeah.
small business, you can have a meeting with somebody from CRA, and they will talk to you about best practices."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That was a fun fact.
I'll put the link in the show notes for it. I'll have to hunt around for it. But it's just a free, like, Zoom meeting. You don't have to share any of your information with him. You can ask all the questions that you want. It's only meant for small companies, so sole proprietors. And they're separate from the auditing department. So you won't get audited. They don't share any of your information, but they
Mhm.
can go through like what you have been deducting. Is that okay? What you haven't been deducting, should you start deducting it? It was great.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the best meetings I have ever attended. I delayed it for like 7 years. I should have done it from day one. I was like, oh, this is going to take so long and it's going to be hard. I'm going to have to meet up with them and I'm going to have to figure this out. And I was nervous about it. No, it was the best thing I'd ever done. So that will be linked in the show notes. Um, anyway, so going back and forth with arguing with him about what can and cannot be deducted based off of this meeting with CRA.
Mhm.
Um, we finally get it done, put it through, and they bill me for $750 or whatever it was, and I just responded with, "I'm nope, like, I
Yeah.
respect paying you for the job you have done, and I will pay you what my fee was last year, but I am
Yeah.
not paying you an extra $300 that you told me you were charging me so that you could do a good job on my taxes." Because I had to redo my own taxes. I had to go through every line. I had to compare it. I had to compare it to my document, which you missed half of. And then he just responded with, "Okay, pay what you think is fair, and I'll be happy to pass you on to another accountant for next year." So he fired me. I got
I'm
fired
sorry.
from my accountant.
I'm sorry.
Um, and I I don't think I'm that big of a bitch, and I don't think that it was unreasonable for me to tell him that I will pay the $300, but I'm not paying 350 or whatever it was, right? Like,
Yeah.
you didn't do the job.
Yeah. You had to fix it. Like you said, you did your own taxes. So it's like, what am I paying you for if you didn't render the best service that you wanted to?
Yeah, after charging me double the price he was charging me. Like, he went up by 100% and then did a really shit job. So, uh, anyways, now I'm on to my next accountant. Here's to hoping. Recommended by a friend. He works only with small businesses. I think he's
Okay.
like a some retired gentleman who lives in the country, and he does people's taxes as his little retirement thing. And so I'm gonna work with him this year and see how that goes. And I mean, I've already accountant hopped enough, so
Yeah.
if he decides that he's no longer doing it in another 2 years, I'll just find another account.
That's just marvelous. Oh my days. I think there should be a course in AT schools. I don't know if anybody from the schools is going to see this, about accounting, because there is a business course, but nothing really teaches you on how to navigate this side of the world. Like got audited, and I was telling anybody who would listen that I'm getting audited because I don't know what to do. Um, and we can sort of dive into that now. Is that if that's okay if you want to dive into that?
Absolutely. Tell us about the process.
So I woke up on I think it was a Tuesday morning from an email from the CRA because you can get the letters, but you can also get the email notifications. So I got an email notification saying, "Hey, the CRA sent you a letter." Like it's first thing in the morning. Let me check it. Maybe I got money. That's what I'm thinking. Some sort of benefit came my way. No, a beautiful letter that says you're getting audited for it was 2022 and 2023 filings. So last year and the year before. And I was like, okay, cool. Too early. Should I figure this out? Went to work. I came home. I printed the letter. And then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, I got the physical letter in the mail. The letter basically breaks down what they need, and they needed everything: invoices, bank statements, receipts to match expenses, um, mileage, so proof of mileage, all of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. And honestly, if you have your stuff organized, it's not that big of a headache. It really isn't. I had everything. So all my receipts were in an envelope, organized somewhere, but the receipts themselves weren't organized. So like 2024 receipts or 2023 receipts were all in one big envelope, not separated. Um, and then as I'm reading the letter, I'm like, oh, they actually need more than I have. So I had to go into my email because with things like car servicing, everything is now a digital receipt. Supplies, so supplies for field work is now digital receipts. So I had to physically print all those receipts.
So they won't take electronic copies of receipts?
They they will, and I figured this out probably like 2 weeks into organizing and printing everything. I had to buy a whole new printer for this actually. Funny story. Got a new laptop, and as I try to print with my new laptop, uh, the laptop doesn't recognize my printer. So I go down a Google rabbit hole of forums to find out that my old printer is not compatible with my new laptop. So I went and bought a new printer, which I got for a really good deal. So it was amazing. Printer, fax, scanner, copier. So it does it all. So as I'm printing and organizing and printing and organizing and printing and organizing, um, I reread the letter and it says, oh, if you don't want to mail the receipt, you can upload them into the CRA system. So there's a section where you can upload documents, but you can only upload 10 documents. And there is a size limit to these documents. And the way they want the documents is they want everything in order. So all your motor vehicle receipts to be labeled motor vehicle receipt, and each document has to have the reference number from the letter they sent on it. So I was like, okay, we're going to figure this out. First things first, printed all the receipts that I didn't have physical copies, put everything in order: motor vehicle expenses, medical supplies, invoices, bank statements, cell phone receipts, organize it all. And then I had to pull the T2125, which is like the self employment section of the taxes that they filled. So I had to pull that from my tax return, print that, double check the numbers that were there, go into QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is what I used to track. Um, Actually, no, I didn't have to print it from QuickBooks. I had it with my tax filings. I keep everything. The summary, the profit loss summary, because it breaks down everything. So cross match that with the T2125, and then with my receipts, physically calculate to make sure all the numbers added up. Took me way longer than I needed to. So once that I made sure that, okay, what I have in QuickBooks matches my physical receipts and the numbers on the T2125, I was like, okay, cool. How do we submit this? Um, then I reread the letter and I was like, okay, you can submit it online. Cool. Scan it. Perfect. You only get 10 documents. Great, great, marvelous. And then you have to add the reference number. So what I did is I took a tiny piece of paper, wrote the reference number on it, highlighted it, and then put a tiny piece of tape behind it. And then with every document I scanned, stuck the reference number somewhere on the page. So the reference number is on the page. Um, and I scanned in bunches. So the letter from the CRA, first of all, this letter is not just a letter, it's a questionnaire. and they basically ask you when you started your business, what's the name of the business, the GST number that's associated with it, if you have any family members who work for the business, do you use your vehicle for the business, what do you actually do for the business, how many contracts do you have, um, are there any conflicts of interest. They also want on copies of your contracts, so that had to be in there too. And then your accountant information. So if somebody filed your taxes for you, who they are, what their business is, what their business address is, what their phone number is, because then that technically is the person who's responsible for this whole process. So got all of that done and scanned, emailed, and uploaded. This basically all happened in the span of 30 days. They give you 30 days, by the way, to get all of this figured out and done. 30 days. They say you can call them and ask for an extension, but truthfully, being very honest, if you have everything organized from the beginning, so if at the end of every year, or even twice a year, you take one of those Jotangs and organize all your receipts, then you don't have a problem. All you have to do is pull the binder and everything is there. But I didn't have that. So had to reorganize everything, print all the receipts, make sure all my numbers matched up. In the midst of all of this, I told my accountant, literally, I think the date after I got the letter, emailed her. I'm like, hey, FYI, I'm getting audited. And she's like, oh, send me a copy of the letter. Sent her a copy of the letter. I'm organizing all my things. Um, and then 2 weeks ago, I shoot an email. I'm like, can we meet before I submit these documents? Because I have all these documents. I want to make sure everything is organized and makes sense. So we meet up. She essentially double checks every like the numbers on the T2125 that match the receipts. And the meeting was like maybe an hour. And she was like, yeah, everything's good. As long as you have everything in order, you won't have a problem. Um, the auditing process actually takes time. So once they actually you submit your documents, it could take a couple of months for them to review it and get back to you and all that jazz. It's long. It's long. It's a lot of paperwork. And honestly, to save yourself the headaches, if somebody told me from the beginning, besides saving your receipt, organizing them, like actually have everything organized in a binder, I would have done it from the beginning. Because I have
Yeah,
everything in QuickBooks, but it scans everything, and when you try to download the documents, it just downloads everything as one massive zip file. Nothing is labeled, nothing's labeled. It's just one big zip file with a whole bunch of pictures. So that is the process. It was long. It was frustrating. It was stressful because I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting. That's the one thing that stressed me out is I didn't know why. I don't. They don't tell you why you're getting audited. They just tell you, hey, we're auditing this year and this year. Here are the documents we need. Fill in this questionnaire. You have 30 days to submit.
yeah. So that's insane, and that is my biggest fear. Because it would take me way longer than a couple of days to like put that together. Um, because I do so many different like little things.
Mhm.
And so I started 3 years ago. I started of getting into the habit of every month I sit down, I take half a day, and I organize all my receipts for the past month, for the prior month. And
Yeah.
so and like I take it when have a receipt, I save every single receipt for every single thing that I buy.
Yeah.
Um, and then I throw it into like literally a box. Okay, it used to be a
Yeah.
drawer. And then when like let's say, the first Monday of a new month, that's my day that I do my receipts.
Yeah.
So, and my bookkeeping, and I go through, I organize them into different like whatever, this is my car, this is
Yeah.
my work meetings, this is, all of the different things. I highlight the date on it. If it was a lunch meeting or anything like
Mhm.
that, I write the person's name on the receipt.
Oh.
Because one of my clients, who is a financial advisor, had told me that that's what CRA wants. They want if you're claiming food with a
Yeah.
client, they want the name of the client on the receipt. So then And he had recommended that I put these into envelopes and then I save it, right? Like I just keep everything
Yeah.
as a paper copy. I don't keep everything as a paper copy. I put things just online.
Mhm.
That's the part that would take a really long time for me is finding all of the online receipts. So
Yeah.
then I go through, after I've organized them into piles, I put them on my Excel sheet, the date, where the expense is from, the expense, and the GST. And then
Okay.
I um, have a little total tally at the bottom that I calculate up. Um, and as I'm going through, if there's a receipt and it's like, I bought David some clothes, okay, well, I'm throwing that out. But the
Yeah.
reason I keep it initially is because I don't want to accidentally say no to taking a receipt that I needed.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? So I want to keep it. I want it to be a habit that I'm keeping my receipts and then I'm going to go through it. And because I go through it monthly, I
Mhm.
can remember what it was for, why I used it, who I saw, right? Like whatever information I
Yeah.
need. And then it goes in a folder. And then once I hit that 7 years, I take the folder and I burn it.
As you should, burn it. Do you have a separate, like, personal account and business account? Because I've separated what is business expenses and what is personal expenses because it was just getting too much in the sense of like cross matching. So that makes it a little easier too in regards of keeping receipts because the receipts will have like the last four digits of your card number. So it's easier to pull and be like, okay, this is my business card, this is my personal card. But, sometimes you gotta mix it all up together.
I have not. I think in the perfect world, I would have a separate bank account for all business expenses. But
Mhm.
I keep everything together. I keep all my personal and my business together right now.
Yeah.
I think if I ever decided that I was going to separate myself
Mhm.
from my business, then that's when I would do that. And I would just do a complete separation. And honestly, I just haven't done that because I mean, financially, why pay for a second bank account? Why pay for a second
Yeah.
card? And um, you know, yeah, that's really the reasons why I haven't. And maybe it's just I don't understand it enough to get there. Um, yeah. So I just keep everything under me. And I don't make enough money to I don't think I make enough money to need to separate things
Do things.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, was the separation was less about amount made, but more about just expenses just getting all confused and jumbled up. So, like,
Mm,
the business card that I have is literally just a separate bank account. Um, and then I do all because most of my self-employment stuff is the field stuff. So all of my field income goes into that account. And then it balances out because I'm not fully self-employed, then that account I know is accurate in regards to income coming in for field work, but then that's what I use for all the expenses as well. So it's
mm.
like all the vehicle expenses that are field related, the supplies come up that account, AT courses, yearly dues, all that comes out of that because I just helps me keep it separate. I had it all together at the beginning and it was just it got too much. Like there's too many
Yeah.
transactions going on.
Yeah, and I get that. I often have thought about that because I think it would be a little bit more organized and easier to follow.
Mhm.
But again, I go through my hmm, I
Because you do it
usually
monthly.
yeah. Now that being said, when I started like really getting into moving because I moved over the summer,
Yeah.
so I would say May is probably the last time I've done it. So I'm not looking forward to it. I need to take a day and sit down and do this. It's Christmas. I'm going to take a day. I'm not going to work. I'm going to
Yeah.
just work on my accounting, bookkeeping stuff. But yeah. Yeah, so when you do it more frequently, it's easier to sort through and see those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think having a separate bank account for all of that would simplify it and make it more organized. And when I met with CRA, she had said that they just want to see because your bank account can get audited too, right? So they want
Yeah.
to see that it matches up where money coming in equals money coming out.
Yeah. So, like, for me, they asked for the bank statements, and, um, Gosh, that was long too. Because the bank statements, and I think it was money coming in and money coming out, but I think what they're trying to match, I don't know, I'm not an accountant, I'm not the CRA, but also the invoices, because they wanted physical copies of all the invoices. So, okay, if you're claiming this as an invoice, where did that money go into your account? So cross matching that, and then some of the expenses too. So that made it a lot easier because then I didn't have to print my personal bank statements, because that would have just 2 years worth of personal expenses. That would have been hundreds of pages. Hundreds of pages.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
I also
they
like,
wanted the whole statement.
yeah, that's crazy. No, I have not separated. I should. It'll never happen.
It's a process. It's like it's easier done at the beginning. Like when I did it, I was really like I'm still at the beginning of my career. I still consider myself at the beginning. But I did it early days. So it was easier to separate it. And the reason I did it, I don't have a spreadsheet. But with the software in QuickBooks, you can separate personal and business. So you go through it and it goes, okay, this is personal remove, this is business. And there was just, because it was my personal bank account, there were more personal expenses than business expenses. And I was like, this is getting ridiculous. Let's see if I can try to separate it. And I did it early days, so it's pretty easy from that.
Yeah. Um, so for all of the ATs listening out there who are just getting into their career, get a separate bank account
Separate
now.
account. Separate bank account. Make it the AT account. Especially if you do, I feel like it's a little more difficult if you're fully self-employed, like yourself, because then like your personal expenses have to come out of that business account because that's your money for everything. Um,
Well, I think what some people will do is like you have your business, you have your personal, and let's say I'm just going to use easy numbers here. Okay, let's say your
mhm,
company makes $100 in a year,
mhm,
and you're only going to pay yourself 30% of that. So you're taking $30 out of that. So your
yeah,
company has $70 worth of um, is worth $70, and then you get that $30 from that.
mhm,
So um, you have all your bank stuff in here and you're paying yourself from here, but you're not taking everything. Or you are, right? Like it can be different numbers there.
yeah,
But that's what a lot of companies will do. Even if they are just a small self-employed, they will they'll turn themselves into a business to um, decrease, I think, chances of litigation so that they can't go after their own personal household expenses, right? So that's what I'm
yeah,
opening myself. I'm at risk for if I were to get sued and my insurance doesn't cover it, they can come after all my personal stuff. Whereas when
mm,
you're a business, where it's why can't I think of the word right now?
incorporated.
Um, yeah, when you're incorporated, they can only come after the business stuff. And so
Yeah,
incorporated athletic therapists, that's why they do that, is to decrease their financial loss.
yeah.
I don't think there's
I think,
any financial gain from doing it, minus
yeah.
that risk mitigation.
See, I think that has to be a whole separate course too. Because now that I think of the business course that I took was a general business course. It was like, this is how you write a business plan, and these are the types of businesses that exist. It was actually, it was called Intro to Business.
Yeah, I believe the University of Winnipeg has now switched their business course and it's a little bit more
Catered
specific
to eight.
to ATs, and that's just in the last couple of years.
Good, because we suck.
Um, yeah, yeah. Well, because I sat in on a panel to look at the AT program, and this was right. I guess every couple of years the university has to get reaccredited. So they look through things and
Yeah,
they revamp it. And that was one of the things that had been brought up was that there needed to be changes with the business course. They needed something more specific for ATs.
yeah,
And so I think they did that. There's still so much more to learn out there,
yeah,
outside of what that course encompasses. But yeah, I really think that athletic therapists need a whole other um, business course because I honestly, after that second time that I screwed up my taxes, I debated becoming like going to school and taking a year-long course on bookkeeping or accounting, like a basic, like, teach
Mm,
me how to do this because
I
I am
can't figure it out.
tired. Yeah, and it wasn't
Yeah.
even after the second time I screwed up my taxes. It was after having crappy accountants, right? Where I just like I was like, I am over this.
Let me
I'm
do it
gonna
myself.
yeah, I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna go to school. I will make myself an accountant enough that I can
Yeah.
understand this, but I don't want to. I don't like numbers.
Yeah. I think they need, because somebody did in the midst of me telling everybody I was literally telling everybody I was getting audited. A few people did refer different accountants to me, and someone, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're an RMT or a personal trainer, or maybe both. And I sat there and I was like, I think we need to start ending up with accountants like the one you have right now, who is specializes in small businesses, just accountants that specializes working with contractors.
Yep.
Because it's a different, I don't know on their back end, but to me it feels like it's a different ball game of how you do things versus someone who's just employed and has kids and has a house. Like it's done differently.
Yep. I agree. I agree. And the problem is, and again, I said this already, but the problem is that as contracted employees or contracted sole proprietors um, who are ATs who are just starting out, or even not just starting out, but like I'm 10 years in.
Hmm.
Our taxes are too complicated to just do online and submit ourselves because we're
Yeah,
losing out on a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that we can write off that we might not realize, and there's a lot of things we can't write off that we might be writing off.
yeah,
And then if you get audited, you're SOL, right? Um, and so we're too small to do it on our own, but then, or sorry, too big to do it on our own, but then we're too small for a lot of these accountants to want to do our taxes
yeah.
because they either it's almost like somebody wants personal taxes and that's all they do, or these big corporations, and there's
And
nobody in that middle ground, or there's
and
very
that's
few in that middle
yeah,
ground.
and that's where we fall. We fall in the weird middle of their personal taxes, but you're also, if you are incorporated, you're a business. But if you're not a ginormous business, then it's like who is actually going to take the time to do it properly? And I feel like in my experience, it is done properly if they have this stuff early. So I always made sure my accountants, I'm like, oh, tax season is coming. We're meeting in March. You by April 10th, you have all the documents that you need. I want to be one of the first filings. Your mind needs to be fresh while you do my taxes. If I catch you in like April 20th, where you filed for 75 people already and you're just tired, yeah, no, no. I need to catch you at the beginning. But I think we just need accountants that are catered to people who do subcontractors. Like, where do the tradesmen do their accountants, their taxes? We need to find that out.
That's where I got this information from
See,
for
that's
my
where
new
we need to
accountant.
go.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah.
we
Well,
need to
and
go.
okay, so the fun thing is, I submit my taxes um, during the personal tax time. I can submit it as a business in June,
Mhm.
like have them done by June. But because of my husband, I have to know all my numbers by the
Oh,
time he
before.
submits his taxes because he needs to know what my income is. He needs to know my
Um,
gross and my net income because he has to be
yeah.
able to submit that to get his taxes completed. So
Uh,
now I just do them. I get them all completed in January and I get them off as soon as I can.
yeah.
Um, because otherwise, how do I know what those numbers are?
Yeah, and that's the tricky part. I do mind doing the personal tax season, as well, because it's just, once again, once those accountants hit that business tax season, good luck, like, even getting an email back. They're just drowning in work. But honestly, shout out to the employers who give out T4s. I got one of my T4s already. I was
Nice.
like,
But how?
how do we do that? Payroll is monthly, so December payroll falls in January. So they issued us our T4s for the year.
Nice.
Yeah, I went to work, they're like, "Here's your T4." I was like, "How?" And I was like, "Oh, wait, no, we get paid, yeah, we'll get paid in January for December." So, yeah, technically, that's
There you go.
2024 locked in.
Someone's organized, ahead of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, please, T4s in a timely manner. That is also, oh my gosh, that's one of my pet peeves. I've gotten T4s in March, like mid-March. I'm like, "Do you guys know what you're doing?" February 15th. I need all of them in line. I don't know if there's a deadline for T4s, but
Don't they don't they pop up on your CRA account now? Like they're online now?
they do, but technology is always glitchy. Sometimes they don't have all of them.
Yeah.
But also I always, when I do my parents and my siblings' taxes, because their taxes aren't super complicated, the CRA system will pull your T4s, but sometimes for some reason it will like double or triple some of them. So you have, depending on what software you use, which is like H&R Block, TurboTax, or whatever all the softwares are, it makes you double check all the numbers anyways.
Mm,
So it's like, okay, yeah, the CRA has your T4, but then if what is pulled from the CRA into whatever software you're using doesn't pull properly, and you don't have a physical T4 either given to you by work or whatever payroll software they use to cross reference, you're basically guessing at that point.
yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
I still keep all my physical ones because I also I don't trust technology that much. Like I trust it enough to, it's good, but what if one day things just disappear? That's my little conspiracy theory rabbit hole. Like, what if one day,
Then CRA is not gonna know what we're submitting anyways.
the software just glitch out and then everything's gone? Like, oh yeah,
Uh,
shut down, and the whole thing just shuts down. You're just like, oh well, there goes everything. Which is why I print everything too. Which is why they tell you to print everything too when you file online digitally yourself. It's like, here's a PDF document of your filing. I have the digital version and I print the physical version and I hide it somewhere because
will you come do
you're
my
gonna get
taxes for me?
absolutely not. I can't even do mine myself, clearly. Clearly can't do mine myself. Okay, so what is the advice that we would give to new incoming ATs in
Yeah,
regards to
so my advice would be hire an accountant. That's my first thing. My second thing would be um, pick a timeline that you want to do your bookkeeping monthly. It keeps me on top of things. I keep things organized, and I have it organized where every style of expense has its own envelope, and I put it on my Excel sheet. So pick a system that you want and stick to it and keep it that way because then it's organized. And then it's ready if you ever get audited. It's ready when you do your accounting, your tax season, and it's stress free when you do it on a regular basis. So
yeah,
get an accountant, find a way to get organized. That's my two pieces of advice. What's yours?
yeah, I do that. Get an accountant, keep all your receipts, be organized. If you know early days, separate your personal and business expenses. Um, yeah, that'd be pretty much it. Oh, photocopy receipts, they fade.
Okay, so what is the process there? If they are faded, what does CRA do?
So the ones that I had that are faded were legible to me. So I literally just like, it was partially faded. So it's like half of the receipt is visible. So you can see who the vendor is, what the date was, the totals like sort of half blurred. You can see part of the taxes. So I just like scribbled it in because I can see the amount. It's just faded. But I heard of someone who was self-employed. What were they? I think they were like an event organizer or something, and they said what they actually do is they photocopy their receipts, and besides the actual physical receipt, they keep the copy because receipts fade.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
there's
like if you
apps
get
and stuff like
audited,
that too, where you can take a picture of it
yeah.
and it just
So that's
goes,
what I
it
do with
organizes
QuickBooks.
it.
So it organizes it, but then when you need to download all of it, it's just one massive zip drive. So I'm like, "Ugh," then you actually have to sift through all of it. So it's like, if you have the time and patience to do that, yeah, you have that digital backup. But like I said, I don't trust technology. What if the software just stops working one day?
Hoots, yep,
all your papers are gone.
yeah.
So
Oh, that's
yeah,
crazy.
have backups. That's the other advice. Have have backups.
Yeah.
But yeah, photocopy receipts, they fade. I have the pictures. I will now start photocopying it and keep them all. Yeah, because you have to keep them for, what is it, 7 years?
7 years. Yeah, you're making me wanna go buy a printer now so that I can just, print off every single one of my receipts as they come in.
Honestly, somebody told me that they do everything in Google Drive, and I was like, that's actually really smart. So like you can use the software, like you have your spreadsheet, you have your physical receipts, but if you scan or take a picture of everything and just pop it in a Google Drive or some folder on your computer on a thumbnail, it's all digitally organized, but then you also have the physical copy.
Mm,
Like it's like creating your own system.
yeah,
Maybe that's what we need to do, create our own systems.
yeah. Find a way that works for you. Keep it organized.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really the key. Keep it organized. If it's organized, it's easy to figure things out. If it's not organized, then, you spend a couple of Sunday afternoons sifting through receipts.
Fun. Not.
Fun, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this. I have to get back to my baking.
Of course, enjoy, enjoy.
Yeah, it's my day of baking. Um, it was great talking to you about this. I really appreciate it. A quick little summary of what we chatted about. Paj and I both talked about some of our accounting struggles, finding an accountant that worked for us, where it was, we're not somebody who takes us seriously, actually takes the time to work with us, um, is really, really difficult because you end up being passed off to essentially students who don't know what they are doing. And so finding a good accountant has been difficult for both of us. And then we kind of got into Paj's auditing process and how that worked and all the little details behind that. And the takeaway advice from our difficulties with finding accountants, my big oopses on my GST and submitting and what I owe, and then, having that auditing process is just stay organized, find a system that works for you, get separate bank accounts so that you can keep it more organized, and then find an accountant that is going to work for you and make sure you jive. And if you don't, like keep hunting for one.
Yep,
Yeah. Does that sum it up?
that sums it up. That's the advice. We should put that on
Perfect.
like a picture somewhere. Frame it.
Yep.
Good accountants, stay organized. That's a quote.
Yep. I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.